the ability to use knowledge and use it correctly, however one might construe correctness of knowledge, and justice. So I'll again with my categories of death A, death B. That's going to be equivalent to immortal A, immortal B, because if you understand death A, you understand what kind of immortal that is, because he interprets death to be in that manner. If you know death B, then you know immortal B. This is the same thing. Sticking with my categorization, for immortal A, the concept of death is the deterioration of the self, the I, the consciousness, which, since the immortal cannot lose the sense of that self, it will view death for other mortals as the deterioration of the self. For immortal B, drawing a parallel, if we could juxtapose these two together, immortal A and immortal B, for immortal B, the concept of death is the deterioration of the body, remember, which, since the immortal cannot lose the body, it can't, if you stick a spear through somebody, either that place, that material particles that have been penetrated with the iron rod of the spear are either going to repair or something's going to happen, because it can't physically disappear into non-existence. Somehow magically either the spear is going to not touch it at all, not penetrate those atoms or that the physical space right then and there, or something just mysterious is going to happen and the spear is going to turn into a flower. Somehow the body will not be able to be lost in that sort of sense. And since this immortal cannot lose the body, it can't it can't be hurt in a meaningful way to lead towards death, it will view death for other mortals as the deterioration of their bodies. So while this immortal's walking around, and everybody's dying around him, and this guy's never going to die physically, always will keep the same body, always will keep that connection with the self, except if he interprets that in material terms. He will view the concept of death as meaningless when applied to himself, since he's immortal, but meaningful when looking upon other mortals and seeing how they have a short span of life, and understand death by means of other mortals. Now, again, drawing another comparison between immortal A and B, for immortal A, value may come from the desire to fulfill a virtuous, and however one might want to construe that, a virtuous life before the body deteriorates, leaving only the soul behind. So remember that immortal A is able to have its body deteriorate into a bunch of atoms and recycle back into the universe, but will eternally live as a conscious, a thinking thing that can recognize itself, and that thinking thing will exist forever. And in that sense, immortal A has something to lose. It has its body to lose. There's no saying that reincarnation would eventually reformulate a new body, or the same body, or some sort of other body that it could eventually transform into, if that's even possible, if we grant that. But there is definitely a lot of reason to suppose that value can be interpreted by means of this immortal fearing the annihilation of his physical constituents, even though it knows it's eternally going to live forever as consciously recognizing itself as a thinking thing. With that being said, I want to compare this sort of immortal with immortal B, which is the immortal that cannot deteriorate as immortal A, but lives physically in the same state forever, so aging probably never works. And we're probably, if we think about this seriously, if an immortal can be conceived, then in this immortal B sense, in this physical sense, material sense, this immortal will probably be a fetus, or the first thing, physical thing that it is before it actually is considered alive, to have life. Logically, that just seems to make sense. Unless, of course, just to entertain more of a Hollywood sort of dressing, we can say that the immortal's in his 20s or 30s or something and looks fairly good. He's in the prime of his age. He's able to do things he otherwise couldn't. legally speaking. And not that that's going to restrain a mortal since he's given immortality, since nothing can touch him. But he's able to, he's gone through puberty, he's developed certain organs, and development still works for this young individual. However we want to construe this immortal, a fetus, an old man, a mid-aged man, whatever. Probably most practically and logically speaking would be the first thing when it's conceived, maybe a fetus. But let's just entertain dressing that it's a 20-year-old or something. For this immortal bee, since other mortals around him or her don't live forever, it gives one reason to think that value can still be obtained for this immortal. I did mention a little while ago about greed and how that might play a role into this, that given the duration of this immortal's lifetime, there is no end. He could choose to be a vigilante during one portion of his infinite span of life, and during another portion be a wicked demon. And if he wanted to, really, or he or she wanted to, he could erase history that made himself look like an asshole, and otherwise make him repair his image during another long span of time. And so his virtues may look unvirtuous to the mortal, but to the immortal, given his own standards that his life will never end, he could still formulate, if not similar values, his own sorts of values. And namely, that could be that since other mortals around him do die, and he doesn't, or he or she doesn't die, there might be that sort of motivation from watching others around him or her that was close to him or her, the fear of losing them, not necessarily the fear of losing yourself, or I guess the anxiety or the sorrow or the pain that comes along when you love somebody and they go away. And so this immortal may live forever, but things around him won't live forever. People around him won't live forever, and that might be a really strong reason to suppose that this immortal might value certain things like courage, like justice, like following the law, because it cares what others think while they're alive. Not that it has to, but it could. And so that might be one argument for a reason why thinking that values may still subsist in an immortal's mindset. And so what I've done here is I tackled Immortal A and Immortal B, one strictly in a immaterial sense, the self that persists for eternality, and Immortal B, which is the physical constituent, which is combined, of course, with the recognition of the self, which is construed in material terms, to last for eternity. So both of these types of immortals I've tied to your Martha Nussbaum's ideas of how value might affect the meaning of life. And tell me what you think. I really, really enjoy this topic. This is a really fun one, and it's really making me dissect things that I've never even would possibly considered until actually sitting down and armchairing through this. So definitely let me know what you think. Thanks.